everyone. Welcome to the B-Side Breakdown. My name is Brett Johnson, and I'm your host. This is episode 50. I can't believe we made it to 50 episodes of this, and I'm so stoked that y'all are still listening. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to 50 more. Today, I'm going to be talking with Shure from the band Scarboro about the song Chaser. So just to kind of revamp my approach today. So again, I interview artists, musicians, and songwriters about a song that's meaningful to them that they select, and they're the ones that tell me, hey, I really want to talk about this song. And I'm like, cool, let's talk about it. But they have to give me permission to play the song in its entirety on the episode. So clearly you, the listener, have a chance to hear it before we have our conversation about it. So anyway, that's the jam. That's what we're doing. Episode 50. Let's go. All right. So here is Chaser by Scarboro. All right, and that was Chaser by Scarboro. I have Shure on the line, and Shure, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me about the song today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So I love hardcore punk as self-defined. From everything I found about the band, and that you're from New York City is awesome. It's such a great song. I can't wait to hear the rest of the record. Tell me about why specifically you wanted to talk about that song today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the songs on the record that, we are not an overtly political band, but it's one of the two songs that kind of touches on sort of the political climate. And I thought it was important to talk about it, just because it's also kind of it's a little finger pointy at the world. But I would say that I also include myself in sort of the critique, this is a bit of a critical song. But I thought it was an important topic to talk about, considering the day and age that we find ourselves in, and the role that I think all of these social media platforms play in sort of aiding and abetting conditions remaining the way that they are. So yeah.
No, I hear it. That's great, and thank you for sharing that. I I'm not as adept as getting all the lyrics that as I'd love to from songs like I used to be for some reason. But and I didn't see that the lyrics were available on Bandcamp. But the Can you tell us all listeners a little bit more about kind of the guts of that? Like
Yeah, yeah.
what are the narratives and themes that you're really calling out?
Sure, absolutely. And just as a matter of background, like I began my career in politics. So like, the non-Scarborough life was, I started working in Congress when I was a younger man. I worked in the state Senate for a while, and then I spent like about a decade in the nonprofit advocacy world, with works like the NAACP Youth Defense Fund, Planned Parenthood in New York City, Citizen
Yeah.
Action in New York. In 2020, we went on hiatus because I actually ran for Congress from the left. And then what was supposed to be a couple of month hiatus ended up becoming a couple of years just because I sort of stayed in that world, leaving it altogether in 2023 when I was the chief of staff for a state senator here in New York. Just kind of
Wow.
seeing, sort of the state of play and sort of how far corporate capture had gone, even at the state level, federal level is even worse, and kind of so all that to say is that what's happening in the world now is not a surprise to me, and it's something that I've been calling out since my run for Congress. So that's how come the opening lines like choking on the nadir of your hypocrisy. I've reached the apogee of my own apathy. Um, was just seeing how much um, talk there is, both in the official sort of political world, but also online and even in our punk spaces. We've developed this culture of like the hot take, which is all great. It's not like you can't learn anything from that, or that there isn't some truth to power being spoken there. Um, but I feel that over the years, it's become like the default mode, and that never translates into action. And so, constantly calling out all of the hypocrisy inevitably reveals your own hypocrisy in not acting to do anything for change, and mostly just using a platform to gain viewers and get that engagement or get the likes or the retweets or whatever the case may be.
Sure.
And then which at that point, come 2023, when I'm sort of fed up with the political world and I'm about to walk out of there, it's like feeling like I'm hitting the height of my own apathy at this point, because it's like I've been at this for so long, I've been working in these circles for so long, and to only like the regression, but just like sort of losing sort of the narrative in the real world, and watching sort of the slide back that we've done and all the
Yeah.
awful shit that's happening. So that's sort of what inspires the opening line, and then the army that was promised wasn't marshaled for the war, and I can't stand the fake empathy anymore. Coming from my experiences both in the sort of activist world and in the punk world, like there, especially now, there isn't a show you're not going to go to where you're not going to hear a band railing about what's going on, et cetera, et cetera. But like what I found was that never materialized into the rooms and the halls of power that needed to see like the organizing actually happen. Being
Sure.
up in Albany, and that we'd have like a lobby day for when we were trying to get rid of the privatization in prisons and whatnot. Having been to
Mhm.
so many shows where people are talking about social justice and criminal justice and all this shit, and then here's the lobby day, and where not a single face that I ever recognized. That like when it came to actually doing the hard stuff, not just marching in a protest or saying something outlandish from a stage, it never materialized. And I saw the same thing just with like the activist folk. They're very good online, saying great things, very powerful things, very truthful things, but again, never materializing where they needed to in order to put pressure when there was still time to do that, right? Because there is much truth to a lot of politicians being in the pocket of their donors, and not uh, putting in place the policy that affects or benefits their constituencies. But at the same time, it is hard to ignore when you have a large group of your constituents or activists or engaged people on your doorstep. It forces action, and so that sort of wraps the first verse, and sort of where that inspiration came from, I guess, for lack of a better word.
No, I got it. And thanks for sharing all that. That's really helpful. And I just want to ask a question if you're willing to kind of go there with me a little bit.
Hmm.
Is so I've also noticed, yes, there's a lot of people that have a lot of opinions on social media, and there's a lot of people that say a lot of things on a stage. Um, and one of the things that, I mean, depending on the cause and what it was, yes, I've been one to go out and try to protest and do the right thing, that helps move, or that provides some sort of significant level of action that shows, like, how does this change. But what is that? I mean, if you're saying that what people are doing, and I'm not saying you're suggesting you're saying this just blanketly, but I mean, it's just the context of, well, social posts don't really do it. Saying it on stage doesn't do it. What does do it? Like, what would you encourage people to do?
Yeah, I mean, you really have to. One is get involved, right? Like, I don't think that like we live in a world right now where we can afford to not be tuned in to what is going on. I mean, like when we're recording this, like what is it, a couple of days after Coachella, you
Yep.
know, and the last oil tankers that were destined for the U.S. got here on the 15th. Like we're about to have some economic pain in our pockets in our grocery stores in the coming weeks. And there's a segment of this population that's completely oblivious, right? Like Madonna's on stage with Sabrina Carpenter, great, like look at what's going on in Lebanon, look at what's going on in Gaza still, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there is a war being carried out in our name. So one is this idea that you're not political or whatever is time to get rid of that myth, because I forgot where who used to say this to me all the time, but it's like if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu, right?
Huh.
So that's that's
Yeah.
kind of where we're at, right? Like, and there's some people that take real big pride in being like, well, I don't pay attention to politics, like I'm independent, and it's like, unfortunately, that's just not the way that things actually work, right? The decisions are being made on your behalf regardless. So it pays to one, pay attention and actually understand what's going on, and not sort of just sort of consume the myths or think that it's just about right and left. At this point, if you haven't figured out that it's top, it's up and down and not right and left. I don't
Yep.
know what to tell you. And then secondly is you're going to have to take action, and you're going to have to understand that this stuff takes sacrifice, right?
Sure.
Like we're getting to the point, like we've at this point we've seen the No Kings protest. Those are great, and 20 years ago maybe that would have made a difference, but we're seeing now that that doesn't really constitute anything more than an email capture scheme and a parade.
Right.
So what does an economic strike look like? If we're talking about realistically peaceful whatever modes of influencing here. That's the bottom dollar, right? And people go, oh well, I got bills to pay and blah 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 blah. Guys, I really need to highlight what is coming is not good, and it's coming regardless, and it's going to hit you in the wallet, and all of those things that you're worried about losing today, if you got up and stood up for your neighbors, is going to go away tomorrow. And for folks that think that, oh, it's not really going to be effective, blah 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 blah, look at the Jimmy Kimmel incident, right?
True.
$13 billion lost in 72 hours. Disney got the administration to back off, man's back up on the air. So understand that at the end of the day, right, for better or for worse, there are corporate interests here that have a very intensive vested interest in what's happening in our government, and we can apply that pressure. It is our tax dollars being used to do horrible things, and as uncomfortable as it may be to take a risk and not go to work or participate in an economic strife of some sort.
Yep.
Um, those are the things that are going to cost you a lot less than what's coming down the pike if we do nothing. So yeah.
No, that's great, and that's super helpful. And yeah, Jimmy Kimmel's a great example. Thank you for calling that out. I think one of the things that I find, a lot of the people that I talk to about anything political, without trying to get on left or right, and like you said,
Mhm.
it's up or down. The consistent thread is that nobody feels that whatever they do ends up being effective anyway. Because, like you said, I mean, no King's March, awesome, great. Is it a platform to capture a bunch of emails and cool? You had a parade. Like, I mean, not trying to diminish it, but at the same time, it's like, what effect does that really translate into? And I think that's where I think people get into a paralysis around it. And I'm not justifying it or suggesting that that's just acceptable and just be paralyzed. I'm saying I think there's such a lack of understanding of what is meaningful because what is just fucking bullshit anyway. It's like
Hmm.
you've been on every side of this politically, where so many of us that are frankly listening to this have no experience in the reality of, yeah, to a lot of people I know, just anything political just sounds like, if you're in the political organization today, good fucking luck with whatever you're trying to accomplish, because it just sounds like it's all bullshit anyway. Nobody's paying
Hmm.
attention to rules. No one gives a fuck what you think. And they're just
Correct.
going to do what they want to do. And courts are going to keep saying, we're going to levy some sort of bullshit thing against you, but nothing, who cares? They don't give a fuck. So it's like, then what is effective? So is it really, right, not subscribing to Disney to get Jimmy Kimmel back on the air, right? I mean, it's like all those things are valid. I think there's such a massive disconnect is what I perceive and what I feel around that, where it's like, it's just so challenging to know. You want to put your best foot forward and help and be the most impactful wherever you can. I'll say that instead of you, I'll say I would love to be able to do that. I would love to be able to put my best foot forward and be as most impactful as I can. And a lot of the times I don't know what that is. Um, and it feels challenging to find out. Anyway, I'm not trying to necessarily, I don't know what I'm trying to do or not do, but I thank you for going down that rabbit hole with me, because to me that's just such a challenging subject, and you sound so incredibly knowledgeable on it, which I really appreciate hearing. And it's just it's awesome to hear that, especially in the context of this song too that we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was trying to hit, like try to hit as much as I could, like all of the sort of nerves in this song. And again, not excusing myself from it. I'm not on any high horse because, like, I'm part of the milieu, and I think that, to your point, I think that a lot of that helplessness comes from, it's intentional, right? In the sense that in this country specifically, right, we have this myth of the individual, and
Right.
you believe that to the point that then all of a sudden when things get hard and the levers of power need to be shifted, then all of a sudden you feel isolated, right? And you don't realize that, look, there's 300 plus million of us in this country. We actually do have the power. I mean, if just a sliver of that stayed home for a week, right, and refused to work in order to force change, believe me, it would work. Because people's bottom dollars are on the line there.
Right.
And those interests at the top that stand to lose the most are not going to sit around and watch, money just disappear from their coffers. But like I said, I don't leave myself out of it. I don't leave even folks on my quote unquote side out of it. A lot of the stuff that I would hear, I identify as a leftist, but I have, folks that work for corporate interests that also identify as leftists, and they're like, oh, well, we live in a society, you know, and I'm like, that's a convenient excuse, which, obviously the starts out the second verse,
Yeah.
because, like, for me, and again, I'm not saying this from a high horse position, please,
Yep.
like, I'm not trying to be
I hear
self-righteous
you.
here, but I've never worked a for-profit job in my life. I've taken pay cuts switching from, one job to the next because it was issues that I cared about, because there were problems that I see in the world. And I think if we keep acquiescing to this idea that we cannot escape sort of the capitalist regime, then we're not going to be able to change it, and we're not going to be able to wake other people up to go, hey, we live in a country that's so wealthy. I mean, I don't know how many billions we've already spent on a war that nobody asked for. That we could have been investing in our folks back home. And we are at a point in time in history that has never happened before, given technology and all of this stuff, that we could be moving to a post scarcity society. Choice. That is a choice that's being made by people. And so I think that's why it is so important to realize that you're not alone. And as you were saying, even if it's just in your own neighborhood or in your own community, whether it's setting up, a food bank or whatever it may be, even these little things where we're taking care of our own communities
Yep.
is impactful, because then it starts creating parallel structures to compete with the ones that continue to keep their boot on everybody's necks.
Yep. No, I hear that. I hear that. Um, and it's a powerful reminder for me too. I and I hate saying it like this. I used to be really passionate about helping the homeless, particularly Minneapolis, where I'm from, um,
Hmm.
and and trying to set up, through music and art, like benefit concerts and things, and doing things that help benefit the homeless in Minneapolis at the time. Um, and but those things still, like just kind of like you said, when I shift the focus for myself from the macro impossible knot to try to untie that doesn't make fucking sense to, oh wait, I can set up a local food bank. Oh yeah, I can set up a local fucking
Yeah.
food bank. Like I can just do things that are meaningful to me and feel meaningfully helpful. Hopefully they're meaningfully helpful. And if I get feedback and saying, dude, what you're doing is fucking bullshit and nobody cares about it and it's not helping. Cool. That's really good feedback. Then what can I be doing? But at least I'm actively trying to be helpful. I think, yeah, that's awesome takeaway for me. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for
I
sharing
didn't
that, man.
realize you were from Minneapolis, but I mean,
Yeah,
Minneapolis is a great example of what
for
happens
sure.
when community comes together
Agreed.
to look out for their neighbors, right? I mean, you just lived that, or you're still living it. The news just won't tell us, but yeah.
Yep. Yep. Cool. I just wanted to switch a little bit to the overall record hate season because I saw
Mhm.
that just came out like 4 days ago. Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah. And it's for everyone who's interested in it. It's a 15-track record coming out. I believe it's on Sell the Heart record. Yeah.
Yeah, and WTF Records in Europe.
All right, cool. And is the best place for people to get that at Bandcamp or where, if you were going to have a choice to send people somewhere, where should they go buy it?
Yeah, right now, Bandcamp, we knock on wood, thankfully, super stoked, super surprised, sold out the vinyl at Sell the Heart, but you can still get CDs there
Okay.
on their website. But yeah, if you go to scarborough.bandcamp.com, we have the digital, we have some vinyl left and the CDs. And if that doesn't work, WTF records.eu also has it, but shipping's going to get you. So if you're in Europe, great. If not, you may want to stay local.
Yep. 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 Hear that. And then when I was looking back, I was looking just for some kind of deeper background information on the band, and it just looks like your first demos they came out in 2013. How long has the band been around?
Yeah, so we've been around sort of starting at Proto Scarborough since 2010, 2012, kind of. But 2014 is kind of when I marked the current iteration of Scarborough, so 12 years.
Got it. And is everybody from New York originally? Are you all from New York, or did you all come from different places?
I'm born and raised. Jack's been here for God many years now, over a decade. But he's originally from Indiana,
Okay.
and Radhika, actually, who joined the band in 2023, is from India. So a little bit all over the place.
Yeah, no, that's great. Cool. So, w- with that, has there been then a lot of lineup changes in the band, or is it just particularly drummer?
So drummers, we've had changes over the years, but Jack and I have been together since 2014.
Okay, got it. And so then to talk more about the song itself, Chaser, and the record, kind of where did the how does the songwriting process work for you and the band? Where does it start? Is it just we're in our practice space making noise and all of a sudden things start coming together? Or do you kind of bring ideas or does somebody bring ideas and that's sort of what kicks it off? How does that work?
Yeah, so normally, like, I will just sketch something out on acoustic and then
Sure.
try it out on the electric, and if I'm a bit I kind of knock it all out with usually it's like a 15-30 minute process of getting the initial draft down of like the feel of the song and like rough lyrics. Then I'll bring it into the rehearsal space where we kind of flesh it out, and that's usually the way it works. It's a relatively quick process when it does happen.
Sure.
But for this one, we definitely spent a lot more time fleshing them out, and this is probably the most collaborative record that we've ever done.
Cool.
And it really made sure to bring everybody's feedback and input and kind of flesh out the songs in a more robust way and bring in everybody's ideas. So that was really cool and a lot of fun to do.
No, that sounds like it. So I'm not familiar with what the New York City practice space scene is like. I'm very familiar with how it works in Minneapolis and St. Paul, but I can't. For some reason, I just imagine there's no such thing, and it's renting by the hour at best, or it's in someone's basement. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, it's a little bit of all the above for us. We do the hourly thing at
Okay,
Astoria Soundworks, which is an amazing place. But
cool.
there are some bands that like they throw down and they'll like rent a space somewhere, but it's too rich for our blood.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I hear that. And from a recording side, do you record it yourselves? Like, do you have a rig in your studio that you bring in to do that, or did you go somewhere specific?
Oh no, we went to Brooklyn Recording Paradise and worked with our friend Brian DeMeglio, who did an amazing job of kind of throwing in some ideas and guiding us through this process, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, we went all studio for this one.
Cool. And then when you recorded it, I've in the past I've done one of my favorite records that I recorded on a long time ago was the engineer was insistent because we as a band were young and we were just like we don't know how we're going to do this, and he's like, nope, you're going to record it all live except for the vocals, like, and if you fuck it up, you redo it until you get it right. It's like, well, all right. And so we did it that way, and it was really really fun, and it turned out awesome. We've also done the whole thing, record every instrument separately. But how did you approach that? Was it drums first kind of a thing with scratch tracks, or did you do everything live?
Yeah, so we ended up demoing the record last winter, and then we spent like about a month going through and hearing, things that we wanted to add, like things that could make the record a little bit more dynamic. We had Brian give us some of his input,
Oh, cool.
and then we did do drums first, and then bit by bit. I've always wanted to
Yeah.
do a full live record, but that's just never materialized for us. We've always been, instrument piece by piece and kind of constructed that way.
Got it. Got it. No, that makes sense. And is this your how many of your records have come out on Sell the Heart Records? Is this your first one, or have you released several? I'm not
Oh no,
familiar with the
this is our
catalog.
first. This with Sell the Heart. The other ones that we've done, we did with WTF, and this one was a partnership, obviously, between both.
Oh, okay, cool. That's super cool. And I see that you have some basically like kind of release shows, it looks like, coming up in May 1st and 2nd in Brooklyn, and then also a couple other follow-up shows in New York. Is that where is that May 1st and 2nd at?
So it's just me first. For whatever reason, Bandcamp, or bands in town, the minute that it goes past midnight, it switches the date. But it's May 1st at Main Drive Music in Brooklyn.
Oh,
Really
I see.
stoked for that. Our buddies from Next Scar, who are also on Sell the Heart, will be there.
Cool.
Oh, and Travis Lee from Fat Heaven, who's Jack's other band, he's going to be doing an acoustic thing to open it up. And our friends from Philly, in extreme sports. So yeah, it's really stoked for that. And then a couple of weeks after that, we're going to be at the Wood Shop in Brooklyn with Middle Age Queers and Cop Out. Um, and June, we have two shows in June. We're playing one which we haven't announced yet, and then the last one on the 20th with Pulley, which we're also very excited about.
Nice. And I've done these conversations with several bands that end up playing in Fest, and I see that they've announced Fest 24, and I don't see your name on it, and I'm hoping that there's some sort of new forthcoming announcement where you all get added.
Yeah,
But
no, and unfortunately not. I don't know why Fest has always been a struggle for us to get on. So, maybe next year.
I hope so. I really hope so.
Thank you.
No, that's awesome. Anything else specifically? Are you guys working on any, um, like, do you have any sort of video or other things that you're putting out kind of in support of the release, or is it just the music's out there, you have the shows coming up, and you're just kind of doing that thing?
Yeah, I mean, we're just kind of doing the music and the shows. Like, we've been batting around some ideas for to support. I mean, I think that's one of the I guess the upsides of the modern era is that the world is always content hungry, and there's never a bad time to drop some stuff. But
That's
we've
true.
really just been kind of gearing up to do these shows and all the planning that went into getting the release out. So we'll see what comes next.
Yeah, no, that's great. And do you know if you have, are there plans for doing any runs kind of like down south? Like, are you coming to Atlanta anytime soon or going to Florida?
I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe, we've been thinking about what the runs that we can do,
Sure.
given folks' work and whatnot.
Yeah.
But we've been wanting to get down to Florida for a while now. Especially because our old bassist that Jack replaced moved down to Florida, and he's always asking us to come down.
Sure.
So I definitely owe Robin a visit if you're listening. I promise we're going to make Florida happen at one point or another.
No, that's cool. Awesome. So tell me more about the rest of the record. What is there? I mean, with the title being Hate Season, and as we just talked about Chaser and kind of the idea of that and what the lyrics represent. Like, tell me more about like the rest of the record. What are the themes going on in it?
Yeah, so I mean, I wrote this record in a few months after I had left my job at the state senate. Like we had put out a couple of singles, which were us just sort of getting out of the hiatus and testing the waters again. But then right after that, like all of the songs for this record started coming up. I had talked about this publicly before, but like part of that era, was a really tough time for me, struggling with mental health stuff, and a lot of that stuff shows
Sure.
up in this record. But I had also had like a really crappy psychiatrist who had put me on Valium for way too long, and I didn't realize that it had created an addiction, and sort
Mm-hmm.
of having to heal from all of that and get a good team to take me off it. It had made it really hard to write. But when sort of I was able to get off all of that crap. It really opened up the floodgates, and this record comes out, and so it captures sort of all of the stuff that happened in that sort of hiatus period, and the political stuff. So stuff like Chaser and Sin Futuro come out of that. And then the rest of it, is really like the healing process, and like, whether it's the relationship stuff. Jack has an amazing song on there that caps off the record called Got Soul that he wrote, and that's his baby. And it's really about, leaving toxic situations and, finding yourself again and finding your
Yeah.
soul again. So, there's a lot of variety on this record, but if you love like the sort of speedy hardcore punk stuff, that's there for you. If you like stuff that has a little bit more melody to it, the B side of the record has a lot of that stuff there for you. I mean, how we even threw some horns in there. But
Nice.
ultimately, it takes you through a little bit of our journey, and hopefully, folks can relate to it. But I think that overall, it ends on a high note, and it does sort of tell that story of, sort of hardship and struggle that's happening in this sort of political context as well. But then, sort of a bit of a happy ending there, where one finds themselves again.
No, it's great. Yeah, I can't wait to listen to the whole thing. That's really cool, and I look forward to hearing the kind of the variety of sort of style and dynamics and how they shift around. Because I love, sure, I mean, I love hardcore and I love all different kinds of flavors of it. So I'm looking forward to hearing all that. Um, where then is, I mean, I know we talked about where people can get the record, but where is the best place for everybody to follow you? Is it, I mean, is it specifically a social media place, or is there some other format you prefer?
Yeah, Instagram is probably the best one, even though we're in a bunch of places. But it's at Scarboro Punks, SCARBOROPUNX. And you can
Cool.
find us on pretty much all social media with that. But Instagram's the easiest, especially if you want to get in touch. We're really responsive.
Awesome. 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 Well, I'll make sure that I include all those links when I make the social posts and posting on when I publish the episode as well, so people know where to find you, find the record, find Sell the Heart, find WTF, and get everything else. So
Awesome.
thank you so much for taking some time this afternoon to chat with me about it. It's super awesome to talk with you and to hear your experience, and I really look forward to hearing the rest of the record.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
You bet. Thanks, sure.
Three Crows Club presents B-Side Breakdown. He's got kinda tired eyes.
All right, and that wraps up another episode of the B-Side Breakdown. I want to thank Shure from the band Scarboro for coming along to talk about their song Chaser. In the background, you're listening to the song ASM KOP by the band The Blackburns. If you like what you hear, please go back and listen to the previous episode, because that's what it was all about. Up next, I have the song Magnetic Rock by the Minneapolis band Deep Fakes, and I'll give you a taste of that at the end of this episode. I want to thank Adam Coulong and Carrie Bozel for helping me put together the jingle you hear at the beginning and the end of this episode. Also, we got a website, bsidebreakdown.com. It'll take you to links to where you can listen to the episodes. Also has a link to our Patreon if you want to support the show in another way. Also, there's a mechanism for you to submit a song if you want for consideration to do an episode on the show. So please pass that around, and please subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. I can't thank you enough for your continued and ongoing support. Stay safe and sane out there, and we'll catch up on the next one. Thanks.
I couldn't find it. I couldn't see straight. I figured I lost it. My mind is such a bad state. I'm lost and I can't figure it out. I've never been so full of doubt. Drawn to your magnet, but I don't understand it. I stepped into the clear.